So I'm pretty sure I'm going to paint around the windows here silver. It was originally silver. I won't try and match exactly the same colour, but as you can see, it's got surface rust all over it. Inside there it's got a bit of rust. So I'm just going to go through and sand it. I'm just going to go through with a 180 grit in the first place, and that may be enough. I don't care if it's not perfect, it'll look much better. But I've already gone through and cleaned this side up. So this side, this is what it is meant to look like, this silver. So the other side's obviously a bit more rusty. So I've already cleaned this up with the 180. So I'll go through, do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll have to, all this masking tape is just so I don't scratch the paint and don't scratch the glass, but I am cleaning the rubbers up at the same time. So I'll go through the delicate job of masking the whole thing up at some stage so that I don't paint the rubbers. I think I'm going to make sure this window is closed, and I think I'll mask that bit at the back and at least the rubber, so that when I paint it, I can just paint this, the edges of it and so on, without it getting inside. So delicate masking up around here and so on, and I'll have to sort of blanket the car a bit. I'm probably just going to use an aerosol can, so a rattle bomb, to do this. I may use a duplicator or maybe just a silver paint, I'll see. But I'm not going to use compressed air, I don't think. I don't think it's necessary. So, yeah, onto it. As you can see, I have the windows masked up, so I've got masking to protect the paint. It goes up on the roof there as well. I'm doing this with a rattle can, so there shouldn't be too much overspray, so I can control that pretty well. I've got the windows masked closed, and I've got everything inside and out masked so that hopefully I don't get any drift or overspray onto anything other than the frame. So what I'm painting is the frames. I've just put a bit of primer, 1K primer. It's the spot spray, the spot rub through primer. Not really what it's designed for, but it's such small areas. I'm going to give it a go. So I'm doing wet on wet. I've done no sampling whatsoever. The paints might not even be compatible, but we'll see. So I've got a duplicator silver that I had in the cupboard. Probably would have been a good idea for me to actually see. I've got that liquid chrome as well. This duplicator, let it for a while. Quicksilver it's called. I better check, see if it actually still works. If not, maybe I'll be going to that. But I'll let this flash off. I've given it a very light coat in the first place. And I might give it one more coat, and then I'll let that flash off, and then I'll wait for 15 or 20 minutes, and then I'll throw some of this on. We'll see how it looks. It's silver, it's shiny, should look okay. We'll find out shortly. So I have 3 coats of the duplicator silver down. The paint was good, and it's looking good. It's not overly shiny, which is good, because the rest of the car is satin. I think it should work all right. It's actually, I think, quite similar to what was there originally. So I've got the other side masked up. It was the rustier side, but I guess you can sort of see what was there previously. So I think it'll be close enough to looking the same. So a fair bit of masking involved in doing something like this, but that's all right. Just as a point of interest, I'm listening to Luther Allison at the moment, some rock and blues. Sounds good. Different music every time. Well, it's the little things that make the difference, and personally I think that's made a big difference. Really happy I did that. A lot of masking for such a little thing, but it's coming along well. So got this side in primer. I'll get the coats of silver on that, and then that will be done. Still got to do around the tops of the doors once they're painted. I'm really happy with that. I think it's made a big difference. Okay, both sides done. Got into this lip here, and the same on the other side here. Because of the way that I had it closed, I got paint into this gap. I've managed to get really nicely, haven't got rubber on the seals. Excuse the rooster in the background. There is some white paint on the rubbers here, but that was actually either from when I painted the top or from when the car had previously been painted. I'm really happy with that. I've just got to get some latches for these. They're both broken, or try and work out a way of fixing them, but that's awesome. Okay, so looking at the bomb side in front of me here at the moment, it's warmer weather here by the way, so I've got the legs out. I need to tidy up. That rooster's got to keep going. So what I'm going to do, the back brake is locked on. I'm going to see if I can unlock it so that I can roll the car back. I could drive it if I put a battery and a seat in it, but I'll just try and push it. Because what I want to do is drop this down, push it out the back, give the workshop a clean up, and then I want to hang the doors, the tailgate and the bonnet so I can put some colour on those. I can do all of that in yellow, but I've still got to do the top of the tailgate and the inside of the tailgate in white. So that's what I'm going to do. Fix the brake, or try and loosen the brake up, get this thing down, push it out, clean up, hang some stuff, get some yellow paint on, and then the final assembly of all the hanging panels can happen on this thing. I'm super excited about that. I think this thing's going to just really start coming together. Less chatter, more work. Okay, Doris is back on the ground. I took particular care letting it down because it was jacked up pretty high. So when I was letting the front down, it wanted to roll on the axle stands at the back. And if I went down too fast, I'm pretty sure those axle stands would have tipped and the car would have come down. So I lowered it down onto some old rims at the front, then lowered the back, then lowered the front again. That doesn't matter. I'm pretty excited to see what this colour looks like in the daylight. So let's have a look together. Well, that was a bit of a false start because I've unlocked the back brake, but now one of the front brakes is locked on. We'll get back to this in a minute. Or 10. Or an hour. Okay, so I've been playing around with these brakes. Got the right hand side, driver's side spinning, so that's good. Just had to back it off on the back. Luckily, I've got a manual with this car. So just had to back it off. It's got this big nut on the back. Just here, if you've got one of these Datsuns, there's a big 17mm nut. It's a bit hard to film, but it's right there. You just turn it, turns about 180 degrees, it backs it off, and you can do that. There was a bit of surface rust on the inside of the drums, and they'd grabbed, so I just sort of gave it a clean. Gave it a little bit of a degrees mildly, and then some water. Same over here. So once I knew what to do on the other side, this side came off same way. There's a few spare parts, like this piece here. I don't know whether this is necessary or not, this part there, so we'll just get rid of that. Obviously it's the brake shoe. Being a drum, it hasn't got pads, it's got shoes, so the top of it's just come off there. It's obviously just a little bit old and deteriorated, so I'll order some new shoes. I'll replace the wheel cylinders as well, I think, and I'll probably get a kit for the master cylinder, etc, etc. But pretty sure it'll spin all right now because there's less in there to stop it from spinning. Well, it's come up really windy here today. Got winds that apparently are up to about 70 miles an hour. Sorry, no, 70 kilometres an hour, so what's that, about 50 miles an hour, something like that. It's not too bad at the moment. But I was a bit worried about my panels getting blown off the stands. Also a bit worried about how much dust there's going to be in the air for when I'm trying to paint, if I paint in here. So we'll see. Okay, with all the comings and goings of the brakes and the wind and panels threatening to blow off the stands, I almost forgot what I was doing. So I don't know why, but I'm going to push this outdoors so that stuff can fall on it and damage it, I guess. Because the intention originally was to push this outdoors so I could clean up in here, so I could hang all the doors and everything so I could paint them. But as I'm standing here, there's bits of dust and stuff blowing in from outdoors, so I don't understand even what I'm doing anymore, but I'm going to keep doing it. Might not paint. Maybe I'll hang all the panels so that when it's not windy at some point in time, I can just psh, 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 and get it all done. Psh. Now, once again, we're going to get to see what this thing looks like in the sunlight together. At least I didn't have to worry about getting the door cord on the garage door. Where's it? Look. It's got shadows on it now, so it's a bit hard to tell. Looks a lot different through the camera. It's a lot yellower, a lot brighter than it looks through the camera. Well, it still hasn't got a lot of sunlight on it, so it's a bit hard to tell for you. I like it. Looks good. Those wheels look disgusting, and I've got to lower it about 1.5 foot at the back. Okay, well, there you go. It's outdoors. A bit of an anti-climax, actually, but it is looking good. I think those window frames, that colour, that silver there, actually really works well. Righto, I'll clean up in the garage. It's actually been a minute since I've been able to see the garage with some space. There's going to be a new project in here coming soon. Wonder what that could be, eh? Well, as always, I'm probably going to do what I shouldn't do. It's windy out there. There's chances of dust blowing around. But I just want to get this stuff painted. So I'm going to. So I've got door, I've got the bonnet hanging so that I can get to both sides. And then I've got the other door and the tailgate. I was going to stand the doors up and maybe the tailgate so that the paint sits the same way that it does on the, I guess, the quarter panels on the mud guards, because they were painted on a vertical axis and the doors are currently laying flat, and it may lay down flatter, so I'll see. I may try and work out a method of standing them up so that the paint lays the right way. Tailgate I'm not too fussed about, but the doors I am thinking of doing that. But I need to be able to do it without them falling over, and I can't really see an easy way of hanging them from the roof, which is a shame because I've got some really good things to hang things from, but I'll see how I go. Okay, we've got everything cleaned down with glass cleaner. I'm going to give it a wax and grease remove, so wipe it down with wax and grease remover, mix up my paint, and then I'll tack it off just before I put the paint down. It's pretty still in here, and it's about 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 84 degrees. So I think it's pretty good painting temperature, and it's not real humid either. So I'm going to wipe this down with wax and grease, and then we'll go. Okay, it's still pretty fumy in here, but I'm really hot. So firstly, had a little bit of leftover paint, so I put it in this container. I'm going to put it in the freezer and see if I can thaw it for touch-ups and things, maybe brush touch-ups and stuff like that. I heard on a forum that that was a thing that works because this needs to be over a particular temperature to set. So if it's frozen, apparently it doesn't. What can I lose? One Tupperware container. So I've got 3 to 4 coats on all of these pieces. I actually didn't mix up enough paint. I never know how much to mix up. I end up having to mix up about 4 lots of paint. I think I mixed up 500 mil and another 200, another 300, another 200. Because I kept running out of paint. It didn't really matter because it's right there. It was just in the flash time, so I don't think it affected anything. But one thing that I did have to change, when I've been using that paint previously, I've been using fast hardener. So you can get slow hardener, medium hardener and fast hardener. And fast hardener is designed for cold weather. Well, when I first started painting this, it was really quite cold. It was like down to 3 or 4 degrees Celsius, which is 38, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, today in the shed here, it's with doors closed, it's a bit like an oven. I'm looking at my thermometer over here. It is currently, it's dropped down a bit, it's 25 degrees. It was up to about 27, 28 degrees in here before. It's a good temperature to paint, but the issue is I had fast hardener, which is for cold weather. I was getting a lot of orange peel. So I was playing around with things. I've sort of been a little bit shy with laying too much paint on because of my paint run situation. So, yeah, the two things together. So what I did on the 4th coat, 3rd or 4th coat, depending on which piece it was on, I went over to medium hardener. And I also slowed my gun down a little bit. And I have to say it laid out a lot better. I think it looks more like the rest of the car. There's definitely some orange peel there, but what I do find with this paint, I don't know if it's all paints, but is that as it dries, some of the orange peel tends to just disappear into itself. But there is some orange peel in the car, so it's important that I get some orange peel in this paint. So I'm much happier with the way it's come up. I was a bit unhappy, well, I was not satisfied with the first couple of coats. So that's good, I'm pleased with that. So it's a bit fumy in here at the moment because I didn't put my extraction fan on, and the reason being, you probably can't hear it, it is really windy outside. I have to say, there doesn't appear to be anything moving around in here, so this is a pretty sealed unit, but for that reason, there's a lot of overspray and so on, so we'll see how that settles. It'll settle like everything in my garage, but that's okay. We'll see how it settles on the painted surfaces. It's still a bit horrible to breathe in here at the moment. I should really still have my mask on. I was also having a bit of trouble seeing on the back of the bonnet here, so I put a light there and it made it much better. It's really hard to try and paint something when you can't actually see what you're doing. So yeah, pretty good. As I said, the tailgate here, the top of it's got to be painted white. Previously I painted the top of the car white and the bottom yellow second. I'm doing it the other way around, so the masking line will be slightly different, but I'm going to try and sand that masking line out and maybe put a pinstripe around it anyway. So this will be white from this point up. I've intentionally put some of the yellow paint as a drift up there. Part of the reason is there was still, I noticed when I was wax and grease removing, there was some sanding scratches. I think I only did this with 240 and I didn't take it down to 320, whereas the rest of it looked okay. So look, it is what it is. But hopefully that paint will fill some of those scratches once I scuff it up to paint the white. So happy progress. I hope the car's still out there. It might have blown away by now. But otherwise, we have our remaining hanging panels all painted, at least on the outside. And there's not going to be a lot of paint on the inside on most of them. I reckon that is enough. I'm going to clean up. Well, personally, I reckon that's looking pretty good. Got the bonnet hood on. Any of those repairs that I did are invisible. That's the way. So I haven't put the doors on yet. Still got to paint this part silver, like the other parts of the car. And I've got to paint this strip here white. And then on the tailgate, I've got to paint the top of it white. And then I've got to do the inside of it. Then they'll be ready to go on. But I love just getting each little piece on, bit at a time. looking good. Getting Doris's doors and tailgate in mask so that I can do the white parts along the top of the door and top of the tailgate. And then once I've done all of that, then I'll strip the mask off and I'll do the silver around the frame as well, but that's a later step. So what I'm doing, I'm masking up just about everything. So let's have a look. So I've got the entire door masked up, other than this little strip here, and just a little bit around the corner just here, so that if it gets seen between the door and the mudguard, then it's at least white. So doing that part, already done that one, just doing the tailgate. So the whole top of the tailgate's going to be painted in the white, whereas everything else needs to be masked off, except that the tailgate is the only panel that I'm painting the inside of, and that's because I had to do some work on it previously, so it's primed, whereas everything else is just going to be as was. So, as I said, only part's got to be painted. So what I'm doing, I've masked off the window inside and outside. I did that when I painted it yellow, so it's the same mask. But what I'm doing here, I've got the masking over the top of the yellow. So I'm just trying to adjust my light here. Got the mask over the top of the yellow. So what I did in the first place, I've just stopped so I can show you. I ran some masking along the edge and overhung it so that it becomes a soft edge. So that's the sticky side on the underside. So the light's not real good here. So I've got that like that, and then I'm running the plastic along, and then with a knife, with a Stanley knife blade, I'm going along and I'm trimming the plastic so that it's just over this blue tape. Then I'm running a second piece of blue tape over the top of it, so it sticks to the original blue tape. So the whole lot will be masked. There will be a soft edge from the underside so that the white from the underside of the panel where it joins the yellow isn't a sharp edge, it'll just sort of fade out softly. And then, yeah, as I said, masking it to keep it all protected. Hopefully I don't get anything drifting in from the back into here. I'll have to have a look at that, make sure that nothing can come in as overspray through these holes. It might have been a good idea, and I might still do it. I might peel this plastic back and just stick some tape over those holes so that drift doesn't come in from the underside, get in underside the plastic and then drift across. So I think I'll just peel that back, shouldn't take a minute. Okay. Righto, that's all done. So I've finished masking along the bottom here. Most of these holes I was able to just put some tape on from the inside, which none of that gets seen because it's behind the trim anyway. These ones are a bit hard to get to, so I just put it over there. As I said, it's just to stop spray drift coming through. So I'll check the underside of that, but otherwise it should be ready to wax and grease, remove and paint along with the other parts. And incidentally, today's masking tape challenge is brought to you by Bob Dylan. That's the music I'm listening to at the moment. It's the Bob Dylan kind of mood. Okay, let's keep going. Giving the place a bit of a clean up, everything is ready to go. Sam helped me hang the tailgate up from my prop up here. Just got a bit of fencing wire tied around a couple of the bolts. This is areas that won't be seen later because the hinge brackets will come down here. So everything is ready to go. Just remember, just got to spot spray a little bit of epoxy, 1K epoxy there before going, so I can let that flash off. And then we get onto the painting. What a beautiful day it is too. Roosters crowing in the background, Datsun shining in the foreground. Let's paint. Just finished washing my gun and everything up, and I'm just demasking the top half of the doors. I'll leave the bottom masked so that when I do the silver, I don't have to remask it. A little bug in it there, but hopefully that'll come out. Just starting to do the tailgate. I've already unmasked this one. What I've used this time for this first tape that I put on was a fine line tape. I've done a bit of airbrushing stuff, and that's the tape that I use for that. So I've used that this time around just to try and get as sharp a line as I can, rather than the typical masking tape type tape. And it's given a really nice line, I have to say. So this paint is still tacky, almost touch dry, I guess. So it's given a really, really nice line across there. I'm very happy with that. So I'll keep unmasking this, but that's what we've got so far. I'll show you once I've taken all the tape off that, because that doesn't need any more paint on it. It's at reassembly stage now. So all done through there. Looking pretty sharp. Just very briefly, I'll show you. So that was where the boot lock was and where I'd had the masking. And hopefully you can see, oh, it's pretty obvious. That is the overspray that would have come through that hole and got underneath the plastic. So good reason to cover those holes. Just given the glass on the tailgate a bit of a clean up, and I thought I'd show you. I use a razor blade, just a general like Stanley knife razor blade, and glass cleaner. So I spray the glass cleaner on, and then I just go over and scrape all of the glass with the razor blade, just sort of laying it on a 45-degree angle. And I find it cleans off most of the junk really well. You know how you get that grime on glass that you just can't get off sometimes? Well, this will get it off. The sharper the razor blade, the better. Just obviously be careful you don't slip and cut yourself. And then just go through and clean it like you would otherwise. So just clean it like you would glass at any stage. But I just like to go through and clean all the junk off first. Just find that it makes it easier. Hello boys and girls. I just find it does a nice job, and you can get right into the edges. And I haven't actually even cleaned this as such yet. I've just scraped it with glass cleaner. I'm sure you can see it's not looking too bad. A bit of a mark there. I'll have to come back with some glass cleaner and clean that. But it's a very effective way of getting your glass as good as you can get it. Crystal clear, as they say. I'm going to clean a few of these things like the tailgate latch and the bonnet latch and all that sort of stuff up. They've got a bit of surface rust on them. So rather than try and wire wheel them, I'm going to put them in a molasses mix. Now, if you don't know what molasses is, I'll open this tin. It is what you give to cows. And you can also make licorice out of it and rum. It is a sugar extract. I believe it's just a waste byproduct actually, but it is one of those things that if you know what to do with it, then you can use it for more than just agricultural purposes. So it's a black gooey stuff. Actually smells very sweet, and as a kid I used to drink it, or not drink it, but dip my finger in it. I'd dip my finger in it, go down to the cattle, the things that the cattle would lick out of, and it's very sweet, it's sugary. Trying not to get it everywhere. It looks a bit like bitumen or treacle. I can smell it already. They use it in cooking, so you can get food grade molasses or you can get agricultural grade molasses. This is agricultural grade molasses, which has now got all dust in it. It's nothing special to look at. It's just goo. What's it say here? This product does not contain restricted animal material. I don't know what that means. Packed with care from where it's from. Okay, so 1 part of this to 9 parts of water. That's just the mix that everyone says to use. It's what I've always used. It works. I'm only going to mix up just a small part, but I have mixed up like 200 litres of this stuff and put really big items in there. Depends on how badly rusted things are, but it can take anywhere from say 2 weeks up to 4 or 6 weeks. Sometimes you've got to take things out, pressure wash them off, put them back in again, take them out, push them back, put them back in. But the things I'm putting in actually aren't too bad, so I'll check on them maybe after a few days, but I suspect it'll be a week before anything will happen. It cleans them up incredibly well. But like anything, soon as you take it out, once the rust is gone, you pressure clean it off, it starts spot rusting. So what I do, as soon as I take it out, I put phosphoric acid on it, and that neutralizes it. It puts a phosphorus coating and etches it. And then from there, I can go through and I can put some paint on it. Or you can just leave it raw, I guess, but it will rust. So I'm going to mix some of this stuff up and dunk some of that in there. Just to show you, this is it. If you could smell how sweet that is. So that's about a 4 litre or 1 gallon tin. So I'm going to put in 400 ml, which, what's that, 1/10 of a gallon, however you measure that. So I'm going to put that in. It's not a pure science here. My container's not even clean. So I'll chuck that in there. Look at that. Who would think that that would clean things, eh? I believe I know that if you put things in Coca-Cola, it cleans them. I think it's pretty much the same principle. I guess it's the sugar that does all the work. So we'll put that in there. I'll put some water in. I'll stir it up and I'll show you what it looks like. Not going to be terribly exciting, but I'll show you. And that's it, the magic syrup. So I just mixed it through. I've never done it with warm water, but it'd probably mix through a bit faster with warm water, but no, it took a couple of minutes. And now it's simply a matter, I probably should have put a little bit less in there, and I'm just going to make sure it's stirred up. Just got to make sure it's stirred up before I go any further. Yeah, I'll just stir it a little bit more. There's still some unmixed molasses down there, which would be a waste. Just to give you an idea, that's a 13 kilogram drum of molasses, and from memory it was about $25. So 13 kilograms, oh, it's what is it, maybe 10 litres. That would make up 100 litres of solution. 100 litres you could put into 100 litres, what's that, 25 gallons I think it is, or thereabouts. So you can put some pretty large items in that. So I used some plastic drums previously, and I think I put in twice that amount, and I had stuff sitting there, and after a while it goes weak, stops working, so I'd just throw some more molasses in there. I probably should have tipped it out and got some new stuff in hindsight, because I noticed it was less and less effective each time I used it. One cautionary note is that because it's so sweet, flies love it. So they like to lay their eggs in it, and what I had found was that I ended up with a heap of maggots on the top. Now that sounds pretty disgusting, and it looked pretty disgusting, but all I did was get like a sieve and got them off, and basically just got rid of them, and it was good to go again. But it was pretty disgusting, and it foams up on the top because it sort of ferments and gets all stagnant, and I have to say that after a while it stinks. So don't go putting it right next to your bedroom window or something like that. I was on a residential block previously, and I have to say that it was pretty rancid. I'm on acreage now, and this is a smaller thing, but if I do find it smells, I'll put it down the back somewhere and worry about it then. So, well, yeah, cautionary note. And when you dispose of it, water it down a lot, and like sort of maybe if it's this amount, then put 5 times this amount of water with it, and you can just disperse it across your lawn or into a garden bed or something like that. Cautionary note, if you put it on too strong, it kills your lawn. But if you put it on mild, it doesn't. Apparently it's actually good for the soil. It's not terribly good for the lawn, but it's good for the soil. Okay, so I'm probably going to overflow here a bit, and if I do, I'm just going to have to lose some of this. But I normally put a piece of wire around it and drop it in there. I'm not going to because it's a small tub, but there it goes. The process has started. So I guess the trick is to try and keep things together as best you can, so that you know what goes where. I might just put a little bit of wire around that. This has got paint on it. It's not going to take paint off. That's not what it does. It gets the rust, so it'll clean this up. It doesn't get inside. It's not a miracle worker. It doesn't get inside the thread or anything like that, but it will clean this up beautifully. And this hinge, the spring and everything. that won't get the paint off. But I guess if there is rust underneath the paint, there is a possibility it'll take the paint off just by the simple matter that it's taking the rust off below it. So I'm just going to pop all these things in. It's not a degreaser, so if something is covered in grease, again, don't expect it to remove that. What is this? Don't expect it to remove that. So I'm just putting in anything that I can. Hopefully I remember where they came from. Probably won't. Screws, little clips. Not so crazy about it. Screws in. These little plates, I guess. They got to come off. No, it's not going in. Righto, I think you get the idea. So I'm just going to throw some stuff in here and we'll come back to this in about a week's time and see how it's gone. I'm going to put that in plastic and rubber. It's not going to do anything to it, but it'll clean the rust up on those areas. It doesn't break the rubber down or anything like that. I don't think it really damages anything.